about 5:40 in the evening. It was raining all day. It's stopped now. And as a result, you get some nicely highlighted colors that stand out. There are some things of interest to talk about today. The first being a fall last night that I narrowly prevented. There are some falls when you have a disability that can be much worse than others. The narrowly avoided fall last night would have been a fall that would have resulted in a very bad outcome. I was in the bathroom using a towel to dry off after taking a shower, and my legs gave out of nowhere, and I of course wasn't ready for this, and my body weight shifted backwards. So if I hadn't acted in the fraction of a second that I had by jamming my wrist into the sink to catch myself, I would have fallen backwards into the glass of the shower and probably smashed my head on that glass, and at minimum would have had a contusion on the back of my head, but more likely would have had a concussion or worse. It doesn't matter how tough or brave you are. If you hit your head hard enough, there's going to be a problem. It's interesting when you look up the most common ways cerebral palsy patients die. You'll see things like organ failure, being heart failure or respiratory failure, or mental health, depression having a role. But what you won't see is accidental fall. I always thought that if I was going to die unexpectedly, then an unexpected fall would probably be a high probability. The one good thing about an unexpected fall is that the fall happens so quickly that you won't see it coming. And in a sense, a death you don't see coming is probably better than a prolonged fight for survival. You can catch yourself, like I jam my wrist into the sink, but that's very instinctual and it doesn't always work. So people should understand that the possibility of having a catastrophic fall when you have a disability is always there, whether you want to think about it or not. That possibility definitely exists. And if you are in a situation like myself where you're able to do things so you take less precautions, then your probability of having a severe fall is probably higher than somebody who has a more severe form of a disability. Another thing that I can talk about is the idea of drug and alcohol dependence and it's linked to creativity. A lot of people look down on drug and alcohol addicts. And I can see why. They do put a burden on society and they put a burden on families. However, if you look a little bit deeper, you will probably see that drug and alcohol addicts are some of the most creative people in society. So, we shouldn't treat drug and alcohol addicts as if they are a burden with nothing to offer society. Society would be a dull, dystopian place without creative people. To brighten up the world. To give people a new perspective of expression. There's a lot you can learn from YouTube comments. I was watching a video on the singer of Metallica and his performance, or Metallica's performance, during a concert in Germany. Now, the lead singer was just off stage, just before his song was about to begin. And you could see he was physically uncomfortable, almost as if he was having a panic attack. And one of the comments on the video was something to the effect of, "This makes you think about all the performers, singers, and actors who suffer with drug and alcohol dependence. Maybe they aren't doing drugs just because they can, but maybe they are doing drugs because they are by nature shy, but at the same time have been blessed with a gift of expressing creativity to the world." If you have a creative gift, then your medium of expression will most likely be through reaching larger audiences, whether they be through concerts or large speaking events. If you're a shy person by nature, you are going to look for something that dulls your anxieties while you're trying to express your creative vision. So that was just an interesting thought I had reading that comment. That comment was really spot on, which leads me to another YouTube related idea. I watched a video recently where a YouTuber named Boogie2988 was interviewing Turkey Tom, I believe. And Boogie2988 was trying to explain to Turkey Tom the reason why he does some of the more outlandish things that he does. He was trying to explain to this relatively young person all the shortcomings of his mental state. And Turkey Tom, being a 21-year-old, was just not in a position to fully appreciate all that Boogie2988 was saying. Turkey Tom was being interviewed by Boogie, mostly in relation to a video Turkey Tom made, essentially detailing all of Boogie2988's psychological issues and his behaviors therein. Now, Turkey Tom was taking the position of saying, well, why don't you do this, this, and this to improve your YouTube health and your overall health? You know, there are things that you can do to make the situation better. Boogie2988 could potentially do those things. But you must also give his mental state its proper due. If you are in a bad mental state, then a lot of the suggestions healthier people give you are not useful to you. I feel the same is true with people that try to give people with cerebral palsy suggestions. Without a doubt, yes, there are things that you can do to try to improve your life. However, people that give such advice do not fully appreciate the complexities of the struggles that people with cerebral palsy are going through. There are a lot of roadblocks which regular people just don't account for. And to be honest, if a disabled person hits just one of those many roadblocks, that is probably the end for them. There is no further road to take. Essentially, everything has to go right for you. And if one thing goes wrong, nothing is going to work. That is something normal, healthy people do not understand about the complexities of living with a disability. Normal people have many options. Most of the time, the things that go wrong in their life are not of major significance. They are of minor significance, and as a result, they can more readily jump through hoops to get past that barrier. The struggles a disabled person deals with, however, are monumental. The barriers are major. You cannot simply just move past that barrier to a better life. Those barriers that are in front of you are sadly of more permanence to you. They will probably be with you until you die. And you have to live with all the implications of that. All the fallout from that. All the things that follow from that. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting watching the hour-long interview between Turkey Tom, a 21-year-old, and Boogie2988, someone in their late 40s or early 50s, and to see the giant disconnect within their conversation. As a lawnmower goes off in the background. You would think that living in the suburbs would be quiet, that you wouldn't hear so many people, but all you hear most of the time are people maintaining their yard, doing their landscape. You hear that all the time. You never truly get quiet. It's almost like living in the city is inarguably better because at least the city offers you possibilities. Here, you don't have possibilities. You have the same life day after day after day. And if you don't like that life, then essentially, too bad for you. One last thing I could talk about is something philosophical in nature. Previously, I talked about identities. Specifically, if an old ship has all parts replaced, does the old ship still exist? I said the old ship exists in name only. There is another question in the same vein that can be asked. And that is a piece of clay the same as a statue molded from that piece of clay? I would say that the statue and the piece of clay are different. I would say that when you add a shape to the clay that people of society can recognize, you have fundamentally transformed that block of clay into something more. Just because something is made from a fundamental part doesn't mean that that whole object is solely that fundamental part. To say it is would be to ignore the effort that has gone into making that piece more complex. If we dissect my argument a little further, I mentioned the role of societal influence in determining whether something is representative of a new thing. Society plays a large role in determining how people see the universe and the world around us. In my view, understanding doesn't exist without a societal component. If you cannot get a group of people to agree that something is something, then essentially you have nothing. You have no terms in which to describe anything. This also leads to, again, the idea that because societies play such a large role in the formation of philosophy and the formation of our understanding of the world, that it is clear to see why everything around us is at least philosophically relative. You could imagine a scenario in which a piece of clay is transformed into an object that is known well by one society, but is unknown by another. In one society, that final form of the clay would have real meaning. And in the other society, that final form would be meaningless, almost as if it had never left its initial form of just being a block of clay. This is a very good example of the role society plays in shaping our conception of knowledge and reality. This is perhaps one of the fundamental truths of humankind, is that we are a product of the societies in which we live. And in a very real sense, societies have a way of shaping our realities. Hopefully the noise of the lawnmower didn't overpower my voice and wasn't too distracting. because I do think that there were some interesting ideas in this video, and I would hate for them to be inaudible. That's going to be the end, because we're out of light, but the timing worked out. Because I was able to get my points across. There is one final point to make. Philosophy teaches someone how to have consistency within their beliefs. The worst thing someone can do at least from a philosophical perspective, is to hold inconsistent ideas. The good news is, I do not believe that you need training in formal logic to be able to hold consistent ideas. Take, for example, the idea of the old ship and the idea of the clay and statue. I believe, had I said something like, the old ship is different from the new ship, however, the piece of clay and the statue are no different, I believe that would be an inconsistent position to take. Philosophy teaches you how to be thoughtful enough to remain consistent in your ideas. As long as people are consistent in their ideas, people are free to have, and will always have, differing beliefs. But to a person, they should always strive to have consistent ideas. I know some people are uninterested in putting in energies to make sure their ideas are consistent. But in my view, consistency in ideas is key. It allows you to hold firm convictions and actually care for things on a deep level. And ultimately, I think that's what philosophy is about. Life can be about living superficially, but I believe the human mind is much more capable than that. It is capable of deep thought, and being able to experience the richness that life has to offer. And with that, as a plane flies overhead, you can hear but you cannot see. I will leave you with the darkening environment contrasted with white sky.